outside of the traditional setup, outside of me and Kevin. Still Austin, the host of the AWS Meetup Group. We've got Glen Kerr from Cumulus. He's the representative over there, and he's going to talk about how we can reduce cost through AWS. And then we've got Itai. He's a representative with Matrix Global Services, which is a premier partner of AWS. And then we've got Dan, who is the point of contact if you want to learn more about these services. If you get anything out of this, you want to learn more about what there is with the services, then you can reach out to him. And his email is in the description of the meetup group, the description of the YouTube stream, and in the chat of YouTube. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dan, and he'll take over from here.
Hey everybody, I hope everyone can see me. Glenn is in the process of putting up a slide. There we go. My name is Dan Spiegel. I work for a company called I'm involved with these companies, Cumulus and Matrix Global Services, because about last year I left the company I was working for and went off on my own, started my own consulting company, and I've met many people, and in my travels I found that that these two companies solve a lot of problems that I've struggled with since I've started using AWS. So I'm only really using about 30 of the 70. And of those 30, none of them was a reserved instance. And we had tons of orphan disks, and we had RDS instances that weren't being used. It was a mess. And so, after a fair amount of work, we were able to massively cut our costs. But there have been other experiences that I've had like that. About maybe a year and a half ago, I had a systems admin who's working with me on a fintech company that I was responsible for, and we had a data warehouse, and the data warehouse was slow. So I asked him what he could do to speed up the query time. So he optimized the queries or whatever, and then he decided he was going to use faster disk. So I'm sure you can switch to EBS, and you can increase the IOPS on your disks. So he jacked the IOPS way up. I'm sure you can switch to EBS, and you can increase the IOPS on your disks. So he jacked the IOPS way up on a very large server. And the span of like a week, our costs went up $4,000, which for a startup company is a lot of money. I over the years I've had many. Little hair I have left, trying to figure out how to manage costs. So I use all the stuff that's built into AWS. The cost alerts. I set up cost alerts like every other week. I use CloudWatch. I tag everything. I have like 4 or 5 different standard tags for every resource, but it's still just a colossal headache. And then on top of the cost issues that I'm chronically facing, AWS security is complicated, and you need it's like a full-time job just. And healthcare companies trying to demonstrate to internal and external stakeholders that that I had governance properly set up and compliance set up. And so, over the last year, as I've been off on my own, I've been a fractional CTO, and also I have some startup companies that I'm running on my own. I met Glenn, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, who works for this company Cumulus, and I met Itai, who works for this company Matrix Global Services, and they showed me what they offer to the market, and I've become an evangelist. Like overnight, I realized that the services that they provide, every AWS user should be using. You guys should definitely be using this stuff. I wish I had known about this, well, I mean, they haven't been around that long, but I wish this stuff had been around longer and that I had access to it, because I can think of a lot of situations in which this would have been very helpful. Itai, the first person you'll hear from, works for this company, Matrix Global Services, and he'll talk to you in a minute. They offer all kinds of different services relating to infrastructure management. But the thing that most captivated me about their offering, and what I think you should immediately when this webinar is over, you should follow up on and send me an email about, is that they offer wholesale pricing for AWS, also for Azure and Google Cloud. So what that means is, instead of paying AWS your bill, you have this intermediary that you buy AWS services through. You buy the services through Matrix Global Services. It's the same exact services that you're using now. Nothing changes. The same management console, same resources that you're using, same everything, same customer service, all that. The only difference is that, number one, when you get an invoice every month, it's going to say Matrix Global Services at the top of it instead of AWS. And number two, they will save you 3% of your AWS costs. So whatever you're paying now, if you have them as your intermediary, because they're getting wholesale rates since they do this for lots and lots of companies, they will charge you 3% less. It is the easiest money you will ever save. It takes like a half an hour to set it up, and then you're instantly saving 3%. And then he'll talk to you about the other infrastructure services as well. It's a big company, trustworthy company. They, billion in sales, he'll tell you. And then my friend Glen. So Glen works for this Australian company called Cumulus, and Cumulus has a seriously badass SaaS platform for managing all the things that I've struggled with over the years: costs, security, compliance, governance, these things that are sort of like afterthoughts for infrastructure management. And he'll show you the platform, and more importantly, he'll be telling you about best practices for cost reduction in general, things that everybody should know about. So I really hope that you enjoy this session. And my contact information is on this slide. It's also, I think, in the footers of the slide deck, which is the beginning of the presentation today. Feel free to enter questions into YouTube, and periodically throughout the presentation, we'll pause, and Glenn will answer your questions, or Itai will answer your questions. Definitely email me or call me if you have interest in either of these services, in Itai's services or in Glen's. I'm very happy to talk with you if you have questions, or you want me to talk with your colleagues, or we can do we can do a separate demonstration. I have tons of marketing collateral, so don't be shy. I'm always going to be happy to hear from you. And thank you again. So we have the AWS Meetup group here today, and then I think there are also potentially attendees from other AWS Meetup groups from other around the country, and other people that have heard about this session. With that, I will hand the conch off to Itai from Matrix Global Services.
Thank you, Dan. It was really interesting and amazing. So hi, my name is Itai, and I work as a VP Cloud at Matrix Global Services. On a nutshell, on Matrix, we were founded in 2001. We have more than 10,000 employees and over 1 billion annual revenues. We are a premier partner of AWS and Google, and we're a gold partner of Microsoft. We provide end-to-end services in the cloud world, from cost optimization to well-architected framework, through managed services, professional services. We provide migration services, and also if you're handling with Kubernetes or containers project, whatever you need, if it's in the cloud, we can provide it. As Dan mentioned, this is like saving and immediate saving. An amazing service. We love to manage our clients and to help our clients, if it's with cost reduction or any other services that I just mentioned. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me or Dan, and I'll be happy to answer any question. Glenn, this is yours.
Good stuff. Thanks, Itai. Thanks, Dan, and thanks Austin for helping us get set up on this, and thank you to the group for allowing us to have the time with you today. Very much appreciated. Just a bit of housekeeping, as Dan said. I'll pause and sort of take questions, but if you can just enter questions via the chat, and then Dan can sort of handle those questions and throw questions out to me when I pause, and we'll go from there. If I can't answer anything, happy to get back to you guys offline. So yeah, feel free to ask as many questions as you want. We'll work through those. And just to reiterate, if you need any more information on either Matrix or Cumulus, please get in touch with Dan, and we'll absolutely help you out on any requirements you've got. So a bit about Cumulus. We started in 2012, 2013. Just a bit of housekeeping on Cumulus. We were intent to purchase Cumulus by Cloudbot was announced about 3 weeks ago, public announcement. So we've just been acquired by Cloudbot. I'll just give a bit of a spiel after the Cumulus overview. So yeah, we incorporated in 2013. We started out as a provisioning and orchestration tool. What we were trying to do was basically create pitches as code, or pitches as infrastructure as code. So drag and drop services, and then dynamically attach network to those services. But in 2016, 2017, I came on board with Cumulus, and we had a look at the business, and we said, well, actually, orchestration provisioning, you've got CloudFormation back in 2012, 2013. If anyone was using it back then, as I'm sure you were, was pretty clunky, very limited in capability. It's come a very long way, and then obviously the tool chain, the additional tool chains, deploy, etc., inside AWS have really come along leaps and bounds. So what we took then is we pivoted the business in 2017 to look at a couple of things, which I'll tell you about. But the importance here is that we started off as a provisioning and orchestration tool, and really a diagrammatic infrastructure code tool. We're an advanced technology partner with AWS. We have been an advanced technology partner for the last 3 years. We have the cloud management competency with regards to cost optimization and resource optimization. We're in the throes of getting the security and governance competency at the moment. We've got some pretty significant customers around the world. Guys like Media.com in India, I think we've got sort of 10,000 VM footprint. Singapore Post, Globe Telecom. A good one, a favourite of mine is a company called TWE, which is was part of the Foster's Group. So if you're into drinking beer, they basically run all of the non-beer products for Foster's Group, which is a splinter company from them. They're quite large as well. One of my favourite ones. So, as I said, recently acquired by CloudBot. CloudBot are a provisioning and orchestration automation engine for multi-cloud. Realistically, they focused on server provisioning automation, but they're a very extensible platform. You can really hook in and create blueprints, templates for any service, any service that has an API connection, and that's any service. So we're doing multi-tier, three-tier complex application deployments with a single blueprint that can be deployed over Azure, AWS, GCP, Alibaba, Tencent, Oracle, IBM Cloud, and a bunch of others, including some on-prem cloud capabilities like OpenStack, VMware, etc. So a very comprehensive tool, and why they bought us is really around what we're addressing in market. And as I said, we pivoted the business in 2017. We said what we want to do is align with the native cloud capabilities and native cloud deployment capabilities, and focus on the big problems that have been recognised by enterprises, and that's cost optimization, governance, security, and compliance. So we pivoted the business from an orchestration provisioning tool to try and address these 4 issues. Starting from a provisioning and orchestration tool, especially a very visual diagrammatic one, has given us a bit of a different type of product to, I suppose, the standard cost reporting tool. So we've got, and I actually really like these products from a reporting perspective. You've got products like Cloudability, you had Botmetric, which is now Nutanix Beam, Cloud Health, and a bunch of others in the cost reporting space that have morphed and sort of give you some remediation capabilities, but they're fairly limited in what they can do. We've come from the other angle. We've come from provisioning and then pivoted to cost automation and security compliance views. Because we've come from that provisioning orchestration point, where we've got a lot more horsepower and a lot more smarts around the way services connected, the way they look, and how they're affecting application stack. So what we visualize anything that sits inside AWS or Azure. We're probably a lot more capable in AWS than we are in Azure, just by that's our pedigree. But certainly what we can do, any service that's deployed by Terraform or CloudFormation or part of a deployed pipeline, then we can visualize that, we can cost it, we can look at the performance of all of those services, we can do some analysis on that, we can give you some recommendations on what should be changed, misconfiguration-wise or cost-wise, and then we can take action on it, and that's really the important thing. What we really wanted to do when we created this product and pivoted the business is try and address, through probably 4 main things. Apart from focusing on automation around cost optimization, compliance, security, operational governance, what we really wanted to do is we wanted to create a platform that was easy and fast. So easy and fast to actually understand how you can save the costs. We wanted to create workflows or event workflows that made it easy for you to actually change things or do some things, so action the insights that we're providing. The other thing is we wanted to try and help large enterprises with stakeholder engagement. When you've got tens of thousands of services or tens of thousands of VMs or SQL databases or whatever it may be, actually trying to get permission to change things is very hard, but there's a lot of stakeholders involved. Unless you can automate that stakeholder management, very difficult to try and change things. We wanted to, and the 4th thing is we wanted to try and reduce the amount of risk or lower the amount of risk by introducing automation. So dry runs, opt-out capabilities. So it gives people a chance to test all of these events before they actually implement it in a dev environment or a production environment. So from a cost optimization perspective, I'll run through, I'll give you a little bit around our visibility management capabilities. And the challenges that we sort of just hear continuously from people around unused or disconnected services, idle assets, efficient power management, how do you actually set up power schedules effectively, forecasts, stakeholder engagement, as I said, very topical. Reserved instance management, how does that overlay with spot instances, for example? What happens with savings plans? How do you cater for those? So I'll talk through and show you some of the capabilities that we've got in that space. Realistically, what we're doing is we're trying to visualize, analyze, report, and I think that that's typical of a cost reporting tool. That they visualize stuff. Really, the visualization is right. Here's a bunch of services. Not a topology representation of an architecture, but just visualize the costs and the recommendations and report on those. But as I said, where we sort of go beyond those traditional tools is around the automation, the workflows, and the continual policy-based automation we put in place. So when you get comfortable with the type of remediation workflows that we're enabling for the enterprise, then you can then set them to run on a regular basis. So you've got continual optimization happening in your environment rather than a once-off gratification. There's a lot of tools that provide that once-off gratification. We have regular discussions with AWS, and even the AWS guys say, hey, our cloud economics team come in, they find some remediation opportunities, they help the customer optimize those, and then they walk away. And then 3 months later, there's the same issue again, and we're getting that repeated story time and time again. So we're really about the continuous cloud optimization capability. We're very digital in nature. We try and make things as intuitive as possible. So I won't harp on this. I'll show you within the platform. But very visual in nature. We try and keep it as simple as possible. So if anyone with AWS skills should be able to drive our platform pretty much day one very effectively. We said power scheduling. These are the types of things that we can do that we can sort of help you sort of immediately deliver cost benefit for your company. Tracking RI utilization, disconnected or unused AMIs, a whole bunch of disconnected services, right sizing EC2, naming and tagging conventions, tracking reservations, expiration dates, etc. Is there any questions on that? Dan, any questions so far? Are we still good to go?
I think we're still good to go. Can I just make sure everyone can hear, right? Because I was asking, and it seemed like there were some issues hearing when I was speaking, but it seems like it's all
good. All right.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. And I'll also talk about security and compliance. So what we do is, because we're a very visual platform, we can draw architectures and then filter those architectures as part of the VPC, like look at a VPC, look at all the services in that, and then filter that by tag, and give you a representation of an application stack. And then we can overlay misconfiguration issues over that running architecture. We can provide compliance on PCI, on CIS. We're about to release NIST. We're working on HIPAA. There's another Australian standard called IRAP we're working on. So we're releasing different compliance standards pretty quickly, and we're going to be overlaying them in visual sense, as well as the AWS well-architected security checks on these services, and I'll show you that as part of the platform. We also do some interesting things around API calls to the platform to do AWS well-architected checks on CloudFormation templates, just to shift left a little bit of the issue, so we don't introduce misconfigurations in production. We normally try and catch those, or help our customers catch those before they release them into the production landscape. But we've got about 350 plus, probably close to 400 AWS well-architected checks now, across a number of different services. That service list has probably grown since I put the slide deck together. So we're very focused when we look at costs and when we look at security and building our capability around well-architected. So everything sort of leverages the well-architected framework, everything that we're doing. So we're doing the continuous scanning, as I said, API call on CloudFormation templates, whether they're part of a dev process or in production. We're doing simplified security audits, and then we're doing some automated reporting and recommendations and tracking of changes from a service perspective. It's a very visual nature. I really won't go into this, but I'll show you in the platform. Again, very visual in nature. When we're clicking on a service such as an EC2 instance, we're not just looking at the misconfiguration of the EC2 instance, we're looking at the security group relationship to that. We're looking at the IAM roles that are associated with that. By clicking visually on a service, we can give you a potential for privileged escalation issues related to that service. So as I said, we can proactively prevent issues as part of the CI/CD pipeline. We can also check that CloudFormation template or ARN template, scanning through API. So we've got API. You can make an API call to the platform. It does a well-architected misconfiguration visibility immediately, and then responds back to the pipeline, whether that be step bucket or whatever it may be, and then obviously checks that CloudFormation template from a configuration viewpoint. So I'm going to now swap over to show you the platform. As I said, if you need to get in touch or have got any questions or want more information about this, please reach out to Dan from Optimal Solutions, and he can follow up with you. So I'll just get rid of that and swap over to the platform. So I'm just going to close this. Sorry. There we go. All right. So this is the main dashboard of Cumulus. I suppose a little bit of housekeeping from an AWS perspective. We're completely AWS organization integrated. We're fully multi-tenanted, fully SAML 2 available. From an enterprise integration, AWS integration, where that's all covered, we'll go out and sniff accounts. If you give us the AWS organization information, we'll go out and sniff those accounts, automatically populate, automatically remove, add as that AWS organization is updated. We're pulling a lot of information from CloudWatch, CloudTrail, and various APIs from AWS. So it basically all directly coming from AWS to pull platform data on your cloud services. Very visual in nature. So we have resources, so applications, environments, templates, service managers, probably the one of interest here. I will show you just our template building, which is where we started the capability before CloudFormation matured. We've got a whole lot of cost controls, cost reporting. I will take you through reserved instance and cost service advisor. Obviously, you can see it's very visual in nature. Cost optimization opportunities. Click on that, or click through reserved instance. Click through to reserved instances. Subscription details, month to date forecasting, etc. Cost by service. Again, you can click through this to deeper reporting. The security compliance advisor, so all the AWS well-architected checks we've got on all the different services, security visualization, compliance reporting, activity logging, etc. A bunch of automation under event scheduler for start, stop, right size, backup, etc. And I'll show you through those, and a whole bunch of idle condition tuning for different services. Access management, so it's full up. The platform is fully RBAC controlled and full RBAC control within the tenants. Adapters, it's basically just a description of an AWS account. Some system setting, naming and tagging conventions, backup policies, configuration of cost service advisor. So this is really just essentially what are you restricting from a right sizing perspective? Do you want to restrict that to a particular instance class? So if you do a right size, obviously you're assured that the right the right family. You're not loading, additional network kernel modules, for example, if you choose the wrong instance class. RDS snapshots, you can set that, hey, just don't tell me about RDS snapshots unless they're older than 50 days or 10 days or 7 days or whatever it may be. Same with EBS. Right sizing, don't double up on right sizing. Cost benefit if I'm showing it as idle. Again, some tuning things around idle services around the length days old. So it's really just to remove the noise around the potential cost benefit you can get from the platform and from your services. So I'll just show you resources as a go. I will show you this templates. Again, this is what we sort of started back in 2013. I'll just create a new template, choose an account, region. And this is where we started. And this gives you a bit of background as to why we've got some of our visualization capabilities that I can go ahead and then create templates. And this will create the cloud formation underneath this as I'm, and this will go and just create all the cloud formation as I'm visually building this. And then I can, click on the details, obviously, of that service. I can then configure the details of that, view, edit tags, change the setting in 30 seconds, whatever it may be. I can then give that a name, and then I can save that template or provision that template straight onto the VPC that's been defined. I can obviously add compute resources, databases, etc. There's a whole bunch of error checking. We've got about, I think about 3,000 validations in this. But you can add this and basically create an SOE, and then you can drag and drop, and create infrastructure templates pretty quickly. But that's our pedigree. We don't see many of our customers using this, but it has created a really strong foundation for us to do some other nifty stuff with the 4 pillars around cost, security, compliance, governance, etc. So I'll just jump from that to Service Manager. So Service Manager is really around, as soon as you deploy Cumulus, we get visibility of all of the services that are running in your account. So from a compute perspective, volumes, load balancers, what are scaling groups. We can drill down and show you details of all of those services, view more, all of the details on that service. We can do show you the CloudWatch monitoring. So again, if you're understanding AWS, you're understanding what you're looking at. It's a very easy and centralized platform to show all of your information. Oops. Sorry. So then I've got all of the performance information for that service with different metrics, drill down on certain things. Obviously, this service is not doing very much, so it's not very exciting, but you will get the idea. Load balancers can pull out configuration information on all this, etc. CloudWatch monitoring logs. So a whole bunch of very easily accessible information about your services through Service Manager. It is there for Azure as well. Storage, S3. Database information, etc. So Service Manager gives you a centralized view of obviously allows you to start and stop resources as well. Gives you a centralized view of all of those services very, very quickly and easily. So from a cost perspective, go to cost overview. We look at top 5 account spend. Obviously, we can drill down on all of these things and get more information. I'll show you that as well. Spend details, instance, reserved instance usage. Now this one, I'm actually in a non-production account, so it's a bit messy. But also reserved instance, usage, on-demand usage. We'll also show you spot. We just haven't got any spot in this account. Cost efficiency, so how efficient are you running And that's really a metric of a bunch of different service efficiencies that I'll show you as we start to drill through. So I can say, view more, so I can click through all of those. Again, very easy to navigate. That was one of our sort of core premises of when we built this. Cost reporting. So I've got a whole bunch of cost reporting capabilities. Oops. So if I say, all right, well, I want to have a look at compute detail. Shows me on my compute, I can filter that by accounts. So we've got a whole bunch of standard reports up here. There's probably about 30 or so standard reports here, but then I've got a whole bunch of filters that I can apply to that. Different accounts, different services, add services. Obviously this is compute, so it is automatically filled in the service type. I can apply some filters to that. And then also, save as that. I can also save these reports as apply these settings, save it as a favorite, and then schedule this report to be delivered via email to a particular stakeholder. I can also drill down and basically look at custom metrics and sort of slice and dice this a little bit. So add a dimension, I can add different dimensions to how I can view services by application tag, by environment, by database engine type, blended, unblended costs. We will be introducing a whole bunch of metrics in the next couple of weeks where we can drill down and all this graphing, this reporting tool will be able to give you reports on gigabytes transferred, for example. So instead of just being a cost reporting tool, we'll have different dimensions in which you can then slice and dice service metrics. That's the cost reporting. We've also got a bunch of reserved instance capabilities. So EC2, Elasticase, Redshift, Elasticsearch. Dynamo will be introduced in the next couple of weeks as well. But obviously, same sort of thing, you can drill down pretty readily. You know, what type of ROI am I looking for? What are the terms, payment options? What is the current utilization, like reserved hours, unused reserved hours, top 5 recommendations, right? By 553 T2 nanos, monthly estimated savings. It was very easy to understand what the saving opportunity is. So this is obviously $10,000 saving opportunity per annum, 986, etc. So have a look at utilization. Again, this is go back into the reporting tool, but customized for reserved instances. So total utilization is 83%. That's actually pretty good. I can take out all of these reports as well as the other reports. I can take them out in CSV, PDF. I can change the date ranges, you know, similar to reporting. Have a look at the recommendations. So, well, there's 4 recommended reserved instances. On-demand cost is currently 29,000. Total RI cost if you were to purchase RIs, and the potential benefit. So here's the recommendations. I can then extract that to a CSV. I can change the payment terms, etc. So it's convertible. All right, it's now total cost of RIs is 20,000, potential benefit. So you can de-risk the potential, your RI recommendations as you see fit. So the recommendations on potential new purchases, and then we have a look at existing purchases. So what are those total reserved instances? What are the reserved unit hours? What is the total utilization of that? And the total savings that have resulted from that as well. So I'll just go back to recommendations. And then I say, what of these are the underutilized reserved instances? Obviously, we've only got one of those. I can apply some filters based on period, by service type. We've only got EC2 and RDS in this account, so it's only picked that up. What is the utilization threshold that I want to look at? And then I can set notifications. So add a notification, I can say, well, do I want to state, all right, notify an expiration date 5 days before the expiration of a reserved instance? Do I want to notify people if a reserved instance is underutilized? or a day period and a percentage threshold. Which of the reserved instance do I want to notify on? Use a notify tag and append it. So use select notify tag service owner, for example, automatically append organization domain name to that. So Glen Kerr at Cumulus will go off and automatically notify me of a requirement. So I can go off to finance. I need to, so let's do that. And then custom emails outside the organization. So it gives you flexibility on who you want to notify about either an underutilized reserved instance or an expiring reserved instance.
Hey, Glenn, can I jump in here? Because there's a question that just came up.
Yeah, sure.
How are these reports that we're showing different from what's canned in AWS?
Yeah, so there's absolutely a lot of overlap between what AWS are now providing, say, in Cost Explorer. Look, they've really done, they've done some really good things. So the direct answer is you can use Cost Explorer to get a lot of this data. I suppose that we probably provide the platform in a much easier to use format. AWS in the last couple of weeks have actually really released some really good stuff, and that's sort of like RDS consistent backups, multiple account patch management, cost anomaly detection, some visualization of existing infrastructure, and they continually do that. But what we're really trying to do is create something that's very quick and very easy to utilize. And it's the workflow and the stakeholder engagement that where we sort of take these insights, which AWS can show you, and action them. So our differentiation really is we want the users of our technology to be able to action those insights very quickly and very easily. But certainly you can get a lot of this reporting information out of AWS.
Yeah, I think, are you getting to the part soon where we explore the rules and the workflow? So I think that's
correct.
of interest. So, for sure, while there's reporting that's easier to use in the system, there's a whole workflow engine that's completely novel and value added here.
Yeah. So, and look, we get this feedback from people using like even the AWS TAMs, AWS ESMs, the SAs, just the ease of the platform as opposed to using AWS tooling. It's just very simple, and the workflow stuff is our real differentiation. We actually do things rather than just report on it. I'll skip through that now. It was the next thing I was going to talk about, which is good. So we have Cost Service Advisor. And that's really our window to say, well, what sort of savings can you realize apart from ROIs, apart from power scheduling? What can you easily identify and what can you easily remediate? So what we do is we give you a whole bunch of unused or optimized services. These are just ones that are inside that have been identified within these accounts that there's an optimization opportunity. Obviously, the stuff. RDS snapshots, volume snapshots, attached volumes, unused launch configurations, etc., are services that are potentially being unused and probably can be pretty readily deleted, and you can save some money pretty much straight away. And we have been into some serious enterprises with upwards of $50 million of spend, and it is quite strange that these guys maybe got 200, 250 AWS accounts. We always find accounts where they've got a bunch of AMIs sitting around, or just a whole bunch of volume snapshots sitting in these accounts that are actually costing them a fortune. So these are sort of low-hanging fruit. You can really quickly identify these. Look at RDS snapshots. All right, so this has been days old. It's 543. Ignore this service, show comments, or delete this service. I can just click on that and delete that. So again, very, very quick and easy to take a remediation action. I can ignore this service. So, if this is something I need to complete for a compliance, from a compliance standpoint, I can then just click on that. I can say, well, actually, I'm going to ignore that service and not to show this as part of the potential benefit because you need it for regulatory compliance, for example. So we do that for RDS snapshots. The interesting thing here is everything with a little green cog means that you can create an automation to remediate it. A lot of big companies that still have fairly rigorous change management around any changes to services, so we allow you to pull it out and export that to a CSV if you need to go through change management to get them to approve it before you go ahead and delete or change that service. You can have a look at idle running EC2 instances. Again, all the stuff, reportable inside AWS. That's fine. Utilization CPU, if you have your SSM agent configured, it'll go out and show you memory or other statistics, performance metrics gathered by things like Datadog or Prometheus can be injected into here to allow you to define what an idle run service is. So we can drill down on those services, send everything here, we can create an automation. Here's a list of services that we've got down to here, just around cost remediation and automation workflows. So again, I'll just jump in, idle, stop, EC2, obviously there may be some criteria for easily removing those. What I'll do is jump through to automation. So total events, I can look at what events, we've got a fairly enterprise grade workflow system. We're really concentrating on building our capabilities with the workflow engine, because this is where we can differentiate ourselves from standard tooling that is being provided by AWS, as well as other cost reporting tools. Right, so by provider, by event type, what is completed, show all events, event types, show all events. So we can look at partially completed jobs. We can have a look at we can edit those jobs. We can delete. We can do dry runs, test runs on existing jobs that have run through the scheduler. And then, so if we look through, we can look here, go back to cost, and we show service advisor. As I said, everything here, where it has a green cog, we can create a workflow. So this is what we're doing now, jumping through that workflow. And I say, all right, add an event. And I'll say, AWS Meet. Select the AWS or Azure. Select event type. Let's say, terminate an environment. So I'll say, hey, I want to terminate some services, but my business is not comfortable about me terminating services, but I'd like to start introducing these workflows to at least make people aware that they've got services that are unoptimized. So I want to say, all right, dry run. So I wanted to go through and dry run through this process. I want to email or connect to stakeholders to notify them that I'm just testing this automation, and here's the benefit you're going to get, right? And this potential cost benefit that you're going to get from that. So if I say, all right, we'll select all regions, dry run, next. I want to select for service. I'll do it for all accounts. I want to do this for a load balancers. I want to apply some tag, basically select some filter tags on this. I'll just do that. Might be service owner, potentially. I'll just do it as ADC for now. Obviously, we can change equal to, not equal to. I can add multiple tag filters to that, and or queries. So standard Boolean type queries, which you would be familiar with. I can then say next. So then I've selected load balancer. I've selected my tag filters. Select a condition. Idle stopped. I want load balancers that have been idle for 10 days and a request count of less than 5 on that load balancer. So you can start to sort of tweak each different service. So we go into a lot of customers and say, well, we need to, we've got monitoring tools in play. So the profile of what's idle, depending on the organization, will be slightly different. So people need to customize these idle conditions depending on the service and their enterprise tool sets. What we say next, allow opt-out. So if we created this workflow, we want to go out and engage the stakeholder, which we've done back here. Down here. And say, all right, we want to notify them 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day before we run this workflow. Again, this is a dry run, so we're just testing the workflow to make people comfortable before we actually take it off and allow it to change a service. So notify tag, service owner, or notify email to a certain stakeholder. Event logs, do I enable email log notification to the stakeholders? Failed job status. No, I just want to do all logs. No, I just want to do a failed status on that. Again, email to roles inside or outside the organization. And then create time zones. So time zone, whatever that may be, America, etc. Starts on a particular date, repeat standard type scheduling system around that. You want to do it every minute, for example, runs every 30 minutes. After 5 occurrences, stop, never stop, ends on a certain date. So I've got all those capabilities in there. I'll just add show you the other, say terminate, for example. But I'll just quickly show you this. Exclude spot instances. It's picked up that I'm looking at idle running stop services for EC2. So it's automatically picked up, do I want to exclude spot instances that are running in these environments? So I say yes. And then I can do a whole bunch of condition tuning, so just seen the load balancer, but certainly we can do that for idle services, RDS instances, volume. So you can start to tune some of those idle conditions around when you should stop them. Again, we can exclude them on the front end just around some of the configuration. Don't show me idle services younger than 100 days. And then the idle tuning conditions for each of the different services, we can stop, start, terminate, etc. So we've got a bunch of automations around the right sizing, backup, terminate, start, stop environments. Obviously, this is pretty popular with a bunch of people, a bunch of customers stopping and starting RDS. But pretty much we can say if it's a non-production environment, we don't need it on weekends, and we're only running it 12 hours a day during business hours. Obviously, turning this stuff off pretty much automatically saves you 60% of the cost of the services. It's obviously pretty popular with customers as well. Very easy thing to do, but can save significant amounts of money. From a security perspective, we can do some budgets as well. From a security perspective, we've got a whole bunch of AWS well-architected checks in place across IAM, S3, certificate management, etc. Now, it's very interesting that typically we find that for every one service a customer has, we normally find at least 2 threats to every one service that we scan. And there can be good reason for that, but there's invariably, when we're running these types of checks, we do pick up a lot of very high misconfiguration issues that customers just aren't aware of. So we pick that up. We run those checks for compute, volume, AMIs, groups, key management, database, storage, etc. And then we can go through and drill down more on a particular issue. So by account, by service type, so if we look at EC2, select region, select type of issue that I'm scanning for. This probably won't pick up anything. So now I've filtered that, actually, I've got a few. But now it's just picked up services that obviously are part of that filtering criteria. Scan status, select by type, obviously again, aligned to the AWS 5 pillars, security, performance, reliability, etc., and the scan status of that. So you might want to only see things that are high, very high in security if you're a security focused resource. And then so you can go down and then obviously extract and export that to CSV. You can do that by service and by rule. But again, filter by risk type, filter by which pillar you'd like to actually review. So we can drill down on those. Interesting one that we've just added, and this will also flow into our automation system. If we look at view by rule, view logs. So what we're doing is this is this may be okay. So this hasn't got any logs to it, but what we do is we track the change to that resource and the timestamp on it. So what was the event type that changed or introduced the misconfiguration? When did that event occur? What was the username and the user IP of that? Was it a CloudFormation template? Was it a Terraform template? So we can then actually track what has changed, what service misconfiguration has been introduced by what and by whom. And what we'll be doing with this is adding in real-time alerting and real-time remediation of services. If you think back to what we were doing in the Service Manager, where we've got very fine-grained service configuration details, we've also got the background of orchestration and provisioning of services, so we can start to do some very nifty automation around misconfiguration control and remediation with this information. So we've got security visualization. Again, go back to what would a pedigree of diagram of infrastructure as code diagrammatically. What we can do is then also, as soon as we're loaded, start to visualize existing services inside VPCs. Obviously, I've just selected staging VPC. Now what it's doing is visualizing all of the services inside that VPC. So it's just basically started to represent that. So it's all there. I can click on that and get all the service details of that particular service. Network interface details, security groups, etc. So obviously now we're attributing not just the server details, but security group details associated with that server, ASG, etc., and to tell you what the configuration of that is. And what we're doing here is I've filtered that, apply filter tags if I want, and just look at certain service types or certain application tags or services that are tagged with a certain application tag within inside that VPC, so I can start to carve up some of these services pretty quickly. Here what we're doing is we can start to overlay the AWS well-architected threats on top of the application stacks. This is actually quite interesting from an enterprise change management perspective in the banking industry, is what they're using. Some of our customers are using this for part of their change management process. So go away, validate that the application stack doesn't have any misconfigurations, and prove it diagrammatically. So then you take this diagram and then use it as part of change management control to show, hey, we've overlaid, we've drawn the topology of the running infrastructure in dev. Here's what it looks like. We have no red dots. In this instance, we do. So, well, what security threats have we got? Security groups, could be IAM roles, etc. I'll just see if I've got one with an IAM. Probably not. I can have a look at RDS. What problems have I got with that RDS database? Now, see if I've got an IAM one. server, machine image. So we just picked up a whole bunch of those AWS well architected associated with that service. I'm one with IAM. No, but we'll pick up a whole bunch of misconfigurations, alert you visually around what those what the threat is and the severity of that. And we will be overlaying compliance standards as well over the top of these very, very shortly, which I'll show you. So we have a bunch of compliance capabilities. CIS and PCI deployed at the moment. We are extending this pretty quickly, and we will be overlaying this visually on top of the visualization capability as well. But I know AWS has actually just released some visualization capability of current services, so go and check that out. It's actually released a couple of weeks, maybe a week or two ago. Actually, a pretty nifty tool. So we can do compliance reports for CIS, PCI. This will be released shortly. I'll just click on. I'll show here. This is actually one of our dev environments. So we're now doing checks for compliance, obviously different versions by account, by different areas of the compliance standard. You can then say, I just want identity. Oh, sorry, it's timed me out while I've been talking. But we get fairly comprehensive around, all right, well, what are the services? How is this affected? How does this affect the compliance standard? If scan status is red, all right, what does that scan status do? If this was associated to a service, I could actually click through to it into the service manager and then have a look at the actual configuration of the service. So I can go through and then list 143 only established connections into the network, and this is running on PCI, so unallowed from a PCI perspective. As I said, the NIST stuff is basically dev complete, just going through final testing, so NIST should be released very, very shortly. But you can see what we're doing here is like once we create these compliance standards, we'll be able to visually overlay these things, tie them back into the automation system, but as well as tying back into the automation system, because of our provisioning orchestration, we can start to do some pretty smart actions on the service based on a misconfiguration type, by severity, etc., which will be which is pretty exciting for us. And this will be sort of coming in the next month or two, where we start to take a lot more real-time alerting of misconfiguration, and also the real-time remediation of any misconfigurations based on well-architected or based on a compliance standard. So with that, I think that's probably a good point to stop and say, have we got any questions?
Yeah, there was one question that was raised that we haven't talked about. So the question is, on the cost of the tooling, what is the overhead for such tooling? Because there's all these API calls that are
impact is negligible.
Can you repeat my question, because I don't know if everyone's able to hear me in webinar land?
My interpretation is, what is the overhead of the tooling given we're making so many API calls?
Right.
The impact performance to any of the services on your accounts is negligible. There is zero impact. Like, it's a very lightweight. It's actually very, very lightweight deployment from a performance standpoint. We've never had any customer even see any change in their environment once this is deployed from a performance perspective.
Yeah, that was the only question that we had that was outstanding. Want to just ask again?
So is there any other questions?
Seems like no.
Seems like that's good. Well, so that sort of covers the, I suppose the general overview. There's a whole bunch of stuff I could potentially drill down into, but yeah, I think that gives a really good sort of overview of our capabilities. So if you've got any other questions, you're going to reach out to Dan to understand more, or get us to view your services in read-only mode. Dan is working through doing assessments on existing environments using our tooling. We need least privileged access, read-only access to give you most of this information. Normally within a few hours, we've got visibility of all services and costs given the right read-only access. So if you'd like to go forward with anything like that and us to come and have a look, please reach out to Dan. We would be most happy to help you out.
Great. I would say sign off, except out if anyone knows. Ask Austin if he wants to say anything.
Is that it for you guys? I'm back on here.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we've covered pretty much everything we wanted to cover, Austin.
Sweet. All right, we'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you guys for joining on the stream today. We have a talk next month on IoT and on machine learning operations, so on AWS. So stay tuned for that. Check that out on the meetup page. See you guys next time.
Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate your time.